All right, all right. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Garage. I'm Chris the Candy Man. Please like and subscribe and follow me on Twitter at FFB Garage. Today we're talking underdog best ball trends in ADP. What's been going on since the combine? Which players are rising? Which players are falling? We've got some good stuff today. We're talking underdog. I think at this time in the offseason, fantasy football mostly revolves around rookie drafts and underdog drafts. And, even if we're a little bit early getting into underdog before the actual NFL draft happens, I think it's an opportunity to take advantage of some of these rookies and where their ADPs are now. And in the future, we'd obviously expect some of them to rise up. If we can kind of figure out who those players are going to be and draft them now, we get an edge. And I know everyone's doing that too, but still, there's some positive value that we can get by drafting a little early, especially if we know we're going to be doing a good number of drafts. I'm probably planning to do the most I've ever done before. This is like my third year doing underdog drafts. I'll probably get close to 100 drafts this year, which is a lot for me. So let's get into it. Here's what we got. This is quite a chart. Shout out to 4for4. They've got ADP, underdog ADP trends data, and it's updated pretty frequently. I went and pulled data from a couple time periods. So this is going back. The first one is the last day in February, which is about right before the combine, pre-combine. The next one I pulled was after the combine, post-combine, a week later. Another week later, we have free agency starting. So we should see a lot of interesting trends coming from that 3/14 period a couple weeks ago. Got a week later, it's week 2 of free agency. There were some interesting things happening then as well. And then I pulled a date from a couple days ago. And I'm intending to update this about once a week. And so we'll come look back. And in the future, I'll be making a video looking specifically at the rookies. Today, we're looking at this top 48 picks. So the first 4 rounds, we've got the top 24 here. Let's dive in. Here's what we're looking at. So we've got ADP trends for the top 24 players. That's what we're showing in the first section. The second section, we've got total change during the period. So we're going from the end of February to where we are coming into this weekend. And that's that total ADP change for these players. Scrolling down, Travis Kelce falling almost a spot. Not too surprising. But then we get down to Austin Eckler, and we see that he's dropped 4.7 spots in ADP. That's a lot. That's a lot of movement. If someone's falling, someone's rising. Who's rising? CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Steph Diggs, Tyreek Hill. The receivers are rising, except for Devontae Adams. Interesting. Maybe there's an opportunity to take advantage of that. I don't know why Devontae would be falling here. Looks like if we go through the trending data, Devontae was falling in the week from the free agency starting to the second week of free agency. Maybe that news could be, I don't know, related to Garoppolo. It could be related to Jacoby Myers. So that's kind of what we're doing here. We're looking at the trended ADP data. We're connecting it to what's happening in real time, NFL news, and we're getting insights that can allow us to make better draft decisions. Speaking of that, so right here we're looking at the top 24. I want to flip ahead to the 25 to 48 section because there's 2 players we have to talk about. Now that we're getting into free agency and the movers, I've highlighted this guy here, Tony Pollard. He's currently going about 30 overall in ADP. He's been doing that for only the last couple of days because he's one of our biggest gainers in free agency. In week 2 of free agency, we learned that the Cowboys were cutting ties with Zeke. And it's not officially happened, but this is going to happen in the near future. Will the Cowboys draft a rookie running back? Yeah, probably. If you've checked out any of the local beat guys in Dallas, they're all talking about drafting a running back at some point. Dallas has got a couple day 3 picks, a couple day 2 picks. Would not be surprised to see them draft a running back at some point. Obviously, Roschon Johnson's come up. We all know the connection there, being a local Texas talent. And on the tight end side, they could go. There's a deep tight end class, so there's a lot of places they could go there. We'll see what happens. Really exciting stuff to see. Personally, I've got a few Dak Prescott, as my QB1 in a few dynasty leagues, and so I'm always interested to find his next tight end. I hit gold on Schultz a few years ago, and I still am feeling pretty good about that. Anyways, Tony Pollard, here's the issue. He's settling in at 30, kind of in the same group as Chubb, Henry, Jacobs. That is really assuming if he can be, if you're going to take him around guys like them who have a full role, almost like a workhorse load, 3-down back potential guy. And I know that there's some talks about Henry could get moved. Cleveland could draft the rookie running back. Jacobs, he could be fighting off some more pressure from Zamir White. Actually, I think that's interesting. Zamir White's a guy I kind of like in the end of best ball drafts. Great player coming out of Georgia. I was doing more research this rookie class, looking at Kenny McIntosh, and obviously you go through and you see kind of, some of that film, and you remember the rookies from last year, now the sophomores, and you kind of get excited about some of them again. So all that to say, Tony Pollard, you're pretty much buying him here, assuming that they're not going to bring in another big talent at running back. And if they do, you're probably buying him kind of at his peak here. And the reason I can say that confidently is because look at his ADP trend, right? He was around 39, 37, 40. News starts coming out, he might move a little bit. But really it was that second week of free agency. He jumps up 7.5 spots in ADP. And then now he's leveled out. We still, it still hasn't been a really long time since that happened. We'll see how it continues to go. But what I mean to point out is, do you think he's going to keep rising in ADP, Pollard? Or do you think this is where he stops and it's a trend reversal? Because what we really are interested in getting ahead of would be a trend reversal. If Pollard starts to go back into like that 32 range, 33 range, 34, if people start to draft Ramondre and Travis Etienne ahead of Pollard consistently, that's what I'm talking about. Then you're buying him at his peak here potentially. I still like him, and I want to get more Tony Pollard in best ball. But just a lot of thought going into potentially you're buying him here at his peak. He could kind of fade back. And one player, completely different position, different situation, but in terms of what we're seeing in ADP and how that changes, another player we want to call out here is DJ Moore, right? DJ Moore experienced the same kind of booming rise in ADP in the first week of free agency. Changing teams, it's a big plus. Justin Fields, everyone's high on. He keeps improving his passing game in the NFL. Great college passer. So people are high on DJ Moore, understandably. He did the next week drop another spot in 1.3 spots in ADP. So he kept going down, and now he's kind of leveled off. He's someone else to watch. Maybe he's at his peak. I don't know. We could see a trend reversal. But there's a lot going on here. That's what we're looking at here in these ADP trends. This is the kind of stuff I'm going to be talking about weekly, bringing you shows, talking about ADP trends, what's going on. Heavy focus, here first and foremost with the first 4 rounds, the most important picks in the draft. But I'm definitely getting into some of the rookie data. I've got all this data, all this formatted. So excited to get into this and see what we got. Let's jump back to the first page because we're still working our way across this gigantic chart. We've got a win-loss column. The easiest way to describe this is, did your ADP go up week over week? Look at Steph Diggs, 4 green squares. Boom, ADP rising. Stagnant but rising. You can't really rise that much higher to where you're in the first round. There's not a lot of room to go up. So, but still, it's a good trend. The opposite of that would be someone who keeps falling. Josh Allen, falling. 4 straight weeks of falling ADP. And I think the quarterbacks, I called this out in my last video, are just falling in general. We see it here. All these quarterbacks are falling not out of the second round, but deeper into the second round. We've got Essentially, Justin Fields is the only riser. And guess what? He rose in week 1 of free agency. We know what news there was there and how that kind of correlates to his ADP change. And then you see, okay, he still was going down, and now he's kind of trend reversing, and his ADP is correcting a little bit just because the pressure is for all of these quarterbacks to be drafted later in the drafts. The wide receivers are shifting upward. There's also big movers like Pollard who are shifting upward. And the quarterbacks, there's not really going to be as much news related to them right now. Their jobs aren't really in jeopardy the way some of these other players are, or maybe their positions up in the air. And in general, I think if you want to take a quarterback in these first couple of rounds, you just kind of have to be really careful who you construct that with, because the opportunity loss instead of taking a receiver or a running back here, you miss out on some of those top talented players. You really can't make up for it later in the draft, where there are some decent quarterbacks later. And another topic we want to get into is kind of these late round target guys. It's always fun to call out quarterbacks, tight ends, especially running backs, who are those late round guys, can fill a big role, have a really high ceiling, that you can get later in the drafts. So we talked about this win-loss ADP trends. Essentially, if we can see that their ADP, like a Jerry Jeudy, has been gaining every single week, that's a strong indicator. He's probably going to end higher and higher in ADP as this offseason goes on. We'll see how news affects that. Jerry Jeudy is a guy I'm following closely. I think right now, honestly, Jerry Jeudy should go ahead of Mike Williams in my mind. Calvin Ridley, I don't know. DeAndre Hopkins, maybe though, depending on his landing spot. That's an interesting one. And obviously someone who can move. Look how flat DeAndre's ADP's been. No news, right? As soon as that comes in, you can bet he's either going to jump up or going to fall. Let's think about how far he can jump up, though. Would you draft DeAndre Hopkins over a Debo or Amari Cooper? Potentially. I don't see him getting anywhere near DK Metcalf. And so we kind of see probably the earliest you're going to want to take DeAndre Hopkins right now is about 32. And you're hedging and saying, okay, I think he's going to land with the Buffalo Bills or something like that, something nice. Another spot you could look back and say, okay, he lands in a bad spot, or just, you're not high on him. Then you're probably taking Calvin Ridley here, maybe Mike Williams, depending on the situation and your team build. And, Jerry Jeudy. Again, I think Jerry Jeudy stands out to me. Drake London's been an interesting riser. Michael Pittman's been falling. Christian Watson's been falling. Interestingly enough, Christian Watson was falling more during the combine week than he has during free agency in light of the Aaron Rodgers news. I can't say for sure that moving on to Jordan Love is going to be bad for Christian Watson. I'm optimistic. And so at the end of the day, when you look at the profile of who is Jordan Love, he is in a lot of ways exactly what Aaron Rodgers was at the beginning of his career. And so we'll see what the Packers do on defense and what they can do in this draft, but wouldn't it be just perfect, just chef's kiss perfect, if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets and then the Packers in the first round, they get like a tight end or a wide receiver. They go like JSN, or, they get Mayer in the first round. Something they never did for him. So we'll see how that turns out. Let's move on to the last part of this chart. I'm going to flip back to the first page of our top 24 in ADP. And right now, what this section is showing us is overall rank and then the position rank, right? We've got our top 24 overall players in the first 2 rounds, but we've also got position ranks. So you can see, color-coded, there were 14 receivers going in the first 2 rounds right now. Out of 24, that's a lot. there are only 6 running backs going. There's only 3 quarterbacks going and 1 tight end. And so that helps us understand what's the demand for each position in each round, and how does that change in each round, so that you can anticipate selecting, that next position group in your draft or where you are. And the other thing we like to look at here is, over time, how is the player's position rank changing, and how is their overall rank changing? We're talking about what we could expect for, if I go to the second page, DeAndre Hopkins, for example. If DeAndre Hopkins moves up, 4 spots in ADP, then he's going to move ahead, and potentially you take him ahead of Amari Cooper, Deebo Samuel. He's moving up 2 spots in his position ranking, and that's something that we'd want to call out and notice in our trends. But in overall ranking, he could move even more than that, right? He could move 5 spots. And so that's something else we want to take note of as we start to build tiers and see where cutoffs are happening. Naturally, you've got cutoffs at the end of rounds, and if you're picking at the first position or near the beginning and end of the rounds, you're bookending those rounds. That's kind of important to know where those breaks tend to be for position groups and the tiers within those position groups. There's a lot to be said here. I think this is definitely a part of the analysis we'll come back to in future videos. There's just a lot to unpack. I tried to highlight some things. I'm going to flip back to the first page. Only one player jumped up actually from the 3rd round to the 2nd round in the last month, and that was Chris Olave, who was 27th overall, the 15th wide receiver. Now he's going 24th overall, the 14th wide receiver. So whose spot did he take? So who went from receiver 14 to 15, right? Someone's rising, someone's got to be falling. We look at the next page, and it's DK Metcalf, right? Interesting, but what would cause that? And in general, DK has also risen in ADP. We can look back, Olave's just risen a lot more, right? 4.5 spots. It's tied to the car news in the first week of free agency, where for Metcalf, we didn't get any news. He was kind of stagnant in that week. He's risen some since, and that's just because receivers are naturally kind of rising up boards. DK Metcalf, undervalued? Probably. Yeah, probably. And a really good early receiver to take, because stacking with Geno has been pretty easy to do. And I think Geno's a value in this draft, where he's at now. People still kind of sleeping on Geno. These are rounds 3 and 4. I've highlighted some other players who've jumped up around, and so I'm calling out Tony Pollard. We've already talked about him ad nauseum. Let's move on. Justin Fields has moved up. We talked about why that happened, right? Amari Cooper is an interesting one. In the first week of free agency, he's moving. So he moved from 37 to 35. I think he started out over 37. So he's coming up into this round. Maybe that's not as interesting. I don't think there's any major news there, although we do have the Elijah Moore going to the Browns. I like that. I think that's actually good for Cooper. It keeps the offense moving. Another player, DJ Moore, came from outside the top 48. He was 50 previously. He's jumping down to 41. It's pretty cool. Drake London jumping down. And maybe there's some news there with Heineke in Atlanta. He's a Georgia native, is what I've heard. And so he's going to give it a shot. I don't think he ultimately wins out the job. I think he's a really good, talented player who's found success in the NFL. And I don't really see a lot of value in best ball going and taking Heineke. But with Ritter, there is at least some upside. He is very mobile. He's comparable to, I would say, Sam Howell in his own quarterback class in terms of which of those quarterbacks are mobile or not. Kenny Pickett and, some of these other guys are also somewhat scrambling or, able to move around in the pocket. But if you look at their college production, Sam Howell had like this insane last year rushing, hundreds of rushing yards, and Ritter had pretty consistent rushing production as well. And so when I think about the Falcons and Drake London, I'm not super excited about their quarterback situation. There's always a chance they take a rookie quarterback in this upcoming draft. But again, that wouldn't make me excited about their receivers either. Kyle Pitts has been kind of debated. Some people are really down on him lately. But Drake London, a guy to keep an eye on. He obviously could be going way higher. It's his uncertainty at quarterback because we see his wide receiver sophomore classmates, Chris Olave, and understandably Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson had better seasons. But, Drake London still had like I want to say 90th percentile plus rookie season for a wide receiver. And the sky is the limit with a guy like that. So we'll see. I don't know in best ball what I think about Drake London. I don't have a lot of them yet. I tend to go Christian Watson and Jerry Jeudy around there. Or if I'm at the end of the fourth round. Sometimes you got to reach on running back there, and it kind of sucks. You can see, I think right now, that the fourth round obviously is like a running back dead zone. There's Najee there, and no one's excited about him. Everyone's seeing who can be the last person to take Najee. Although his ADP hasn't, moved too much, so maybe he's fairly valued. At the beginning of this offseason, I was thinking Najee would be a great value. I'm starting to reconsider that. I think everyone else has soured on him. And maybe the quality of the running backs at the end of the third round, the ETNs and Ramondre Stevensons, maybe there is a reason to justify the difference there. Originally, I didn't think Najee was that far off from the ETN and Ramondre Stevenson. Something to look into. I think kind of the Steelers offense is what I'm really intrigued in. I think Kenny Pickett can take a big step forward in his sophomore year. He has all of the college production to indicate that, he will. He's the all-time passing leader in pretty much every passing category and stat at Pitt and scoring as well. And he's elevated the players around him. He's played with NFL caliber talent. We've seen guys he's played with. Receivers going to get drafted, we think, in the first round. And I think sometimes when you're looking at a college player and you look at their teammates who are NFL talent, a lot of times we're evaluating the quarterbacks and seeing, okay, well, he played with a lot of NFL talent receivers at Ohio State or Alabama or Georgia or Texas, one of these big elite schools. And then you kind of discount that quarterback. The flip side of that is, the quarterbacks are also elevating the players. And so how do you account for that? It gets dicey. I don't know exactly where we tease that apart, but in short, Kenny Pickett, I think super undervalued. He's still got, that Steelers front office and coaching staff and Mike Tomlin if they don't keep Lamar, and we'll see where that goes. Lamar Jackson, actually, he's the last player here, and we haven't talked about him too much, but look at that, falling 9 spots, essentially him and DJ Moore swapping positions, and it's no surprise. The contract talk has really put some fear in drafters' minds when they look at Lamar Jackson, because first off, who do we stack him with? Second off, where is he going to be? Is he going to hold out? Is he going to sit out? And so for all of those reasons, I cannot sign off on drafting Lamar Jackson right now in best ball. Of course, I'm talking, these smaller 12-team drafts. If you're in a tournament, doing the big board or another tournament, I think you can take the liberty. And what do I know? I'm mostly drafting for these small 12-person drafts that I think are fun. I've actually got one going right now. Let me check in on it. It's a slow draft. Wasn't going very fast at all. And we're still in the second round. I've got the first overall pick. I'm up in 8 picks. Looks like it's not going to happen tonight. I went Justin Jefferson. Feel good about that. I queued up some players. Hey, let's use this chart here we've got to see who I should target in the second, third, and fourth rounds. And maybe later in a video this week I can update you on where that slow draft is at. So I went Justin Jefferson in the first pick. Chris Olave, definitely someone I will take. I've been saying this, though. If Ken Walker's there, I take him, and he's never there. So let's make the assumption that this is a very savvy room. They're going to let the quarterbacks slide, and so am I. So if we move 3 other players ahead that I will not be able to get in this scenario, I won't get Olave, I won't get Brees, and I won't get DK. I automatically am liking this a lot less. And do you reach here for the wide receiver? Do you double tap running back? You might. I think that's probably what I do here. So we've said Brees and DK are gone. I am a Nick Chubb fan. He's just really productive. It seems weird to take him there at 24 or 25 overall, but I think it's just the way the board could fall. And I still believe in Chubb. Talking myself into it live. Josh Jacobs, I also talked myself into. I just feel like it's going to be hard for him to repeat his career best year last year, and so I don't really want to get caught holding the bag on Josh Jacobs. I don't want to be overexposed. I've talked about Tony Pollard. Maybe that's what I do. If that's what the situation is, I probably go something like Pollard and Chubb here and then kind of cool off on running backs for a while. And if I do come back around here in the fourth, I'm probably looking at, I was just saying I didn't want to take Drake London, and there he is. I'm going to assume the quarterbacks end up going, and actually these quarterbacks people have been somewhat reaching on. I feel like people reach on Justin Fields and Joe Burrow more often than the other ones. Probably, I can never get DJ Moore out of this position. I always look for DJ Moore at the end of the fourth. Probably go for a guy like Michael Pittman. Scary, he's falling. I don't know, and people are maybe thinking about that a little bit too much. I think Pittman's still good. Christian Watson's the guy you target there, and it's going to be my receiver too. And I'm going to probably double tap receiver at this turn, the 4-5 turn, going something like Christian Kirk, to follow up. So that's where what I'm thinking for this slow draft. I want to get some decent receivers early. I've got Justin Jefferson, so I can take some liberties at running back. Maybe I go Pollard, and we'll see how I like that build. We've been talking about best ball ADP trends. I like this format. Shoot me a comment. Let me know what players you're targeting. Let me know if you like the way we're showing data here. And if you want me to share this chart, I'm probably going to share it later this week anyways. But if you let me know you want it, I'll shoot it out earlier. Thanks for watching.